The history of slavery in Nigeria dates back centuries ago, when slavery was practiced across West Africa as a legal institution. Nigeria, being one of the regions with the largest population and a central location in West Africa, was a hotspot for slave trade. The slave trade in Nigeria was practiced in many forms, from domestic servitude to forced labor, and was predominantly carried out by wealthier individuals in the society. Slavery in Nigeria was usually initiated through war and raids organized by the major ethnic groups such as the Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa Fulani. The slave trade was also fueled by the demand for labor during the transatlantic slave trade era in the 18th century, where millions of Africans were taken from the continent and transported to the Americas. The practice was officially abolished in 1865, but persisted in some remote locations until the early 20th century. The Igbo, Yoruba, and Hausa Fulani dominated the slave trade networks, with each having its distinct form of slavery. In the Igbo society, slavery was a common practice and was seen as a means of punishment for crimes or as collateral for loans. Slaves were mostly used as domestic servants or as farm laborers. In contrast, the Yoruba had a more diverse system of slavery, which included slavery for religious purposes or as prisoners of war. Hausa Fulani slavery was mostly practiced for forced labor and was traded to other parts of Africa or the Middle East. The transatlantic slave trade era witnessed massive slave operations across Nigeria. The busiest slave ports were located in Lagos, Bonny, and Calabar. The port of Lagos was the center of slave trade, where slaves were transported to Brazil and Cuba. The port of Bonny was the main point of departure for slaves from the Niger Delta region. Calabar was known for the slave trade that occurred through its hinterland, which expanded rapidly after the end of the transatlantic slave trade in 1808. Slavery was officially abolished in Nigeria in 1865 as a result of the efforts of Christian missionaries and abolitionist groups. However, this was just the beginning of the long battle to suppress the cyclical nature of the slave trade that persisted late into the 19th century. The British colonial masters who defeated the Oyo Empire in present-day Nigeria had brought with them a policy of abolition. They were able to stop inter-ethnic wars that were the source of the bulk of enslaved men and women throughout Nigeria. In conclusion, the history of slavery in Nigeria is a sad one that represents the worst of the human trafficking and exploitation. However, it is important to note that the legacy of slavery in Nigeria continues to be felt today in the uneven distribution of wealth and political power. The crippling divide between the north and south of Nigeria, as well as the sense of ethnic persecution by minority communities in the country, can be traced back to the effects of centuries of slavery that institutionalized inequality and disparity in resources. Despite the abolition of slavery, the scars and effects of its practice continue to linger in various aspects of Nigeria's history, economy, and politics. If you found this video helpful, kindly like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more helpful tips on African news and history.